Well, the CBC has announced that it is stripping some content from Ghomeshi from its website, some but not all. Breaking this down is Faith Goldie, Sun News contributor. Welcome, Faith.
Thanks very much.
So the CBC says that some of his work is important and valuable. For example, his interview with Coldplay, and that it should stay on the internet. Therefore, some will be removed, some won't be removed. Do you think that this is going to draw some negative attention?
Oh, certainly. I mean, it already has. A lot of the GN and Q loyalists have already taken to social media and saying that this is, censorship, that they're stripping away an artistic legend and the rest of it. But yeah, you're 100% right in saying that not 100% of the content is going to be gone. CBC executives are calling this, quote, not a massive wipe. So all of his original interviews and the like will remain there. And they say that, look, we clean house when it comes to our online stock every couple of years. And that's exactly what we're doing here right now. Don't make such a big deal about it. But we do know that CBC has made a move to distance themselves from the man who is now facing 4 sexual assault charges as well as one related to choking, who's out on $100,000 bail. I mean, this guy has drawn perhaps the most negative attention to the corporation in all of its 75-plus years of history. So, that's why we saw movements like swiping down his posters outside of the big CBC building here in Toronto. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, I was watching a CBC program last week, and they said that the #1 story this year was the story of these 2 Liberal MPs being booted out of the Liberal caucus. And, and at the time, the commentators said, well, no, the #1 story in Canada this year was Ghomeshi. Interestingly, do you think the CBC is doing enough to point out the severity of this story?
Well, I mean, they did have the whole Fifth Estate episode on it. There are questions as to how that was portrayed, how that was done. Was it fair? Did it go deep enough? But I mean, they are covering it, so kudos to them for that, because it obviously is, one of their own. But I think as investigations go on, as this unfurls in front of the court, I imagine most of it will be under publication ban. But we will see, how much did CBC know, and when did they know it, and were they protecting debatably, I mean, the highest echelon, when it comes to GN, he really rolls with the heavyweights when it comes to CBC staff. But when it comes to CBC saying that, oh yeah, the 2 MPs from the Liberal caucus kicked out, that was the story that did best for us, give me a break. The reason why they were kicked out, and you know this as well as I do, Becky, is the fact that Justin had the Ghomeshi effect going down his spine, and he's acting quickly. He's not waiting for any sort of jurisprudence. He's not waiting for any sort of, reasonable cause. He's just acting out of a knee-jerk reaction, essentially, that was all byproduct of this Ghomeshi scandal.
Yeah, in your words, what would you describe as the reason why the Ghomeshi effect has been so important to allowing for more women to come out, or more individuals to come out against public figures, celebrities, or even these dentistry students, as we just heard from this Dalhousie story, for giving these people confidence to come out?
Right. Well, because Ghomeshi really embodies, I think, so much of the truth when it comes to, and I'm going to say alleged, but just let's say domestic abuse, woman abuse, violence against women. Why? Because so often we hear it's people in power, people who are protected, white-collar workers and the rest of it. It's not just in the slums and the ghettos that this sort of stuff happens. And so good for the women who have filed these criminal charges against Ghomeshi, should they be proven in court, because it takes, oh boy, what a stiff backbone, because all of their sexual history is going to come out before the courts. I mean, if I'm a defense lawyer, that's what I'm doing. I'm saying, what were you doing with who, when, and how did this differ? So it takes a huge amount of fortitude to go forward with this sort of stuff. And apart from that, I mean, it is such a huge story here in Canada, because, I mean, statistically speaking, 1 in every 2 women over the age of 16 experience some sort of abuse, and the vast majority of that is sexual in nature. So I think for a lot of women who perhaps haven't been given a voice in their own sufferings, see this and say, holy smokes, if it happens with someone allegedly of that caliber, then I shouldn't feel so bad about what's happened to me too, and perhaps there is some sort of reclamation of a personal dignity there as well.
Do you think that so federally there's a status of women committee? They're in charge. They're a bipartisan committee. They're in charge of overseeing various issues when it comes to status of women. Typically, not a lot goes on with the status of women committee that makes the light of day in major news headlines, for example. But in 2015, would it be their time to shine and say, let's look at this more constructively?
Certainly. I mean, I heard one commentator here, actually, J.J. McCullough, say that 2014 was the year of rape culture. And while I despise those words, I mean, you've got the Bill Cosby situation going on south of the border. You've got this with the Jian Ghomeshi. You've got the MPs. You've got so much going on at the same time on both sides of the 49th. You've got so many things happening in universities as well that I think there has to be an opening of the books, a very frank conversation that occurs. Okay, why are we suffering this way in, you know, a time of this post-feminist sort of 21st century world that we're living in, that women are still being subjected in these sorts of ways? Why aren't they coming forward? And why are the men of this same epoch acting in this way? And whether that be a governmental initiative or not remains to be seen. But I mean, heck, there's no time like the present when it comes to really defining that raison d'etre for that particular body.
Okay, Faith, thank you very much for joining us. No doubt something we're going to follow.